Hello and welcome back to today's personal finance show here on Dublin City FM with me, Paul Merriman from askpaul.ie. We have I say this every week, special guest. This is a really special guest because we have our own Lisa Langtry in the studio. So Lisa is in our mortgage department. Lisa also has her own Instagram page, which is @_third time buyer, because she has gone through this journey 3 times as being a single person, which is just remarkable. Lisa, you're very welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to be here.
Right, so let's just give listeners a bit of your background. So I've already said you work here at Ask Paul, which is great, and what you do for clients I think is phenomenal. But why don't we just start a little bit more about you and your background, because you were a traveller before you came back into the kind of personal finance world and before you started with Ask Paul. So why don't we talk about your experience about that first and how you ended up back in the role here?
Yeah, so actually, I suppose leaving school, like many people, I didn't really have a sense of direction. So I didn't have a career path I wanted to follow. And I found myself in a lot of jobs where there was very little job satisfaction. So the travel came from that. I thought, I'm going to be happy if I'm overseas, there's a bit of sun.
Yeah.
And that was honestly my thought process there. So I remember even the lead up to going away, I had booked my visa and flights and everything to Australia, and I thought, this is it. I'm going to be really happy when I go over. And look, it was a great experience and delighted I did it. I'd always encourage people to travel, but I found myself in the exact same situation. I was over there, I was in my 9 to 5s. I had no career. I wasn't happy. So at the end of the year in Australia, I decided I had to come home, get a career and do something different. The time that we spend in work in comparison to the weekend, it just, it doesn't equate to each other. So when I came back, it was a friend who had mentioned she started the QFAs.
Yeah.
And she mentioned that there was so many different avenues in banking. So there's risk, there's loans, credit cards, mortgages. And off that, I just went for it then.
Great.
Got into banking, and from there, now, when I came back from Australia, I didn't have a job. I did want to buy very early. I grew up in a one-parent household.
Okay.
So there was, financial struggle naturally. So I had always got a huge drive and ambition to financially set myself up and become secure. So property lined up with that for me. And I always wanted to buy. So I had that in the back of my mind to buy. I didn't necessarily think I'd go down the route of mortgages as my career.
Okay.
But I don't know why I didn't think of it. It would have been a perfect thing to line them together.
So you're more drawn to the property sort of things initially then?
I wanted property, not so much to get into it and start investing. I wanted
to have your own property. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So to have my own property, and then the banking really came. My friend saying she's studying the QFAs. I found school, again, a little bit boring. I didn't do great at school either. So when the QFAs were self-study, I thought, this is an avenue I haven't tried. I didn't do so well in the PLCs. I didn't do third level education. So hearing about the QFAs and how it was very much do it yourself at home, go in for the exam.
That's a really good point, because I was the same. I left school, didn't go to PLC, third level, went straight into Irish Life, and I fell in love with RSA first, then into Irish Life. But I fell in love with the kind of being able to study the QFAs in the evening time. I was earning a living and had a full-time job. And I'd encourage anybody that's listening today that might have finished college, finished school, and hasn't found a career. I completely agree with what you're saying. Go to LIA.ie, which is the Life Assurance Association of Ireland, so LIA.ie, and look at the QFAs, because you can pay for them, study them at a distance, and once you become a qualified financial advisor, which is what the QFA stands for, you then kind of have the world at your feet, and you'd probably walk into any bank, any brokerage, any life assurance company. You'll stroll through the interviews once you have your QFA. You start at a really decent level of income and can climb the corporate ladder, I suppose, or climb the ladder. So, I completely agree with that. I think pretty similar. I had a clue what I wanted to do and kind of fell into it. But the exams are great to be able to do that for people.
They are, and I think they're just a different way of studying as well. Like I had a friend as well, did 3 years in college, did amazing, but the QFAs she found difficult. So it is dependent on how well you study in different ways. So I would encourage people to do that, absolutely.
I think it's interesting though as well. I found the QFAs, and maybe because you were trying to get your own property and interest in learning about the personal finance side, it made it easier. because I found them like really interesting. Where I did I can't remember what they were called, but they were like the general insurance exams, like motor household back in the day, and they bored me to tears, and they were horrendous to study for, and they were very simple to pass, but they're just boring. But once I got the QFAs, I was like, this is really interesting. Like everyone should know this, and I kind of got passionate about personal finance from the very beginning, just from the QFAs, to be honest. So yeah, I think it's probably because you had interest. I think what it's interested would motivate you to learn more, and you're going to get them. Like
that's it. And I thought if there's so many different avenues you can explore when you get the QFAs, yeah, there has to be something within the field. You can't say I hate every single avenue that banking has to offer or finance. So really interesting.
Our head of compliance, Mark Sharp, will kill me for saying this, but there's even compliance in there if you're at that kind of boring nature. But there's something for everybody. Yeah, in fairness, yeah. They're really good exams. So going on, you did the QFAs.
Yeah. Once I still wanted to buy, so I inquired about a mortgage. I actually inquired about a mortgage before I even got back to work when I came back to Ireland.
Right, okay.
So it was in the back of my mind, but I wanted the career first, of course. I needed a stable income. And once I got into mortgages within banking, I loved it. And of course, I had the personal interest as well of buying. And how do I get there? How do I build up this deposit? So then what led me to a broker, I started to realise in a bank, I felt as though, you start off in a bank and you feel as though it's going to be pretty much the same what all banks are offering. Yes. That is just not the case at all.
Yeah.
So I soon realised that when there was something I couldn't do for maybe a friend came to me and I couldn't get it across the line or get them what they needed, and they went to another lender, and I thought, okay, they're getting it there. So although I'm doing great in this field, I need to get to a broker.
Yeah. I know you're dead right. Sorry, I should keep saying it's the exact same. I left Irish Life for that reason, because other people, like actually brokers, were getting better deals with Irish Life than I was able to get with Irish Life. And I worked for Irish Life. Mm-hmm. So people were getting cheaper management charges, they were getting more allocation. I was going, how can a broker get better deal than I work for the company? So so same thing, you want to do better for your clients really and be able to give a better choice.
Absolutely. And especially when their friends come to you and you start to realise I can't actually offer you the best in the market.
Yeah.
Although at the time, of course, I was under the impression I was, because I'm working for one bank. So then, of course, I saw your brand online, Instagram, and I thought it was fantastic. It's exactly the way the world is moving. So just had to get in here. And here, Paul, now ever since August 23. And I'm delighted. And everybody who knows me knows I really enjoy my work, and I'm really happy I've found the work-life balance and everything.
Yeah, I know. Look, in fairness, I will say, you've been you're phenomenal what you do, and the amount of reviews come in. For anyone that's interested, head over to either askpaul.ie or Fairstown and look at the Trustpilot reviews, and the amount that are attributed to you is unbelievable. Because I say this always makes a good advisor, whether it's a financial advisor or whether it's a mortgage advisor or a financial planner. It's someone that genuinely has their clients' best interest for success at heart. So yes, we live in a kind of society, we live in a business rather, it's a sales channel. So obviously we get paid for somebody taking a mortgage, but we do a lot of work to get that person that mortgage, and we don't charge a fee for them. And the same when it comes to financial planning. So yes, we do sell the products like the pension or the investment or the kids education fund or whatever is needed, or the mortgage in this case. But trying to make sure we're doing it for the right reason, you're passionate about it, where somebody that's not passionate about it and just wants to sell a product is completely like the wrong way to have this career, I think. Because it's not a sales role, it's more of it is a financial planning role, whether it's pensions or mortgages. So I think what shines through even on your own Instagram is that you're so happy for people, whether single or couples, when they get their property and they get their keys, and you're part of the journey. And I think for mortgages, Lisa, I think mortgages are the one product that people really want. They come to us looking for them, where we kind of have to talk to people about pensions and investments and savings when they're going for the first time. But I've always loved being a part of the mortgage piece, and that's why I asked Paul when we started. Even it kind of was a success because we kind of concentrated on the mortgage and interest rates and overpaying your mortgage and all those things that we felt people should have known from school. So glad you found a good home, and we're glad you found us. Onwards and upwards. Right, so you're going to ask Paul. We have your own Instagram page again, which for everybody is @single_third-time buyer. Can we talk about this third-time buying thing? Because it's ridiculous for your age, and from a single point of view, it's amazing what you've achieved in the property market. So can we bring listeners through that first before we get into the mortgage world and the technicalities of the job and giving people advice? Maybe we'll go through a bit of that in a few minutes. So how did you start your first property and how have you snowballed up?
With the first property, it was funny. I actually, with the first property, I'd spent a good few years saving. So I had done my year in Australia and everything. I actually didn't think I'd be able to buy as a single buyer.
Okay.
It was a case where I thought I'd be a joint buyer, but then it fell where I was going to be a single buyer.
Okay.
So I had no beliefs that I would get there. I then started to change. I thought, I want the 3-bed, semi-detached. I want the front garden, back garden. So I wanted it all. I wanted to be also in Dublin, of course, as well. So, look, I ended up, it was around the COVID time. So everything was going into lockdown. I'll say I got lucky, but I definitely was preparing in the background. So I was always saving. I had the stable job and stuff like that also. And I got lucky in a sense of, I think at that time, we didn't know how the market was going to go, and I think we felt that from the estate agent.
Yeah.
So getting in that route, I just really enjoyed it though as well. I enjoyed the process. I was really excited, and I think I was more shocked than anybody that I actually got on the ladder.
You mentioned, because you're probably, obviously not now because you're experienced, but back then you're probably like most people today where they feel they can't get on the ladder. And I'd always encourage anybody, even, and you mentioned this, you went to go for looking at a mortgage route before you even had the job and you came back from Australia. So I think it's always worthwhile for people to invest in a mortgage time into a mortgage consultation, because they're currently free through Ask Paul. But getting a mortgage consultation and saying, I want to get a mortgage in the next 8 months, 2 years, and finding out what the route is, because otherwise you could be going around in a circle, not knowing what to believe and listening to people that aren't qualified. Where at least if you get a plan from us, at least you're saying, right, this is where you are today, this is what you have to do to get the ladder in the next few years, or whatever the plan is.
Yeah.
I think you made a good, like, you were surprised, but at least you went for it. Where I think there's so many people out there that could actually probably qualify. Okay, much harder as a single applicant, but there's so many couples out there paying rent that could qualify, might be able to use the first home scheme or the help to buy scheme or anything that's like, they just don't know.
Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting that your journey started off in the same position of, let's just see what I need and then go execute it. Get this your job, always save, build a deposit, which is great. So when did you get your second house then? If that was only COVID, I presumed, I know we spoke with this before, off air, but I presumed that was way earlier than 5 years ago. So how did you get from your first house to the second house then? What was the process there?
So the first property I had, it took so much time for the drawdown to happen, because the estate agent said it was basically a repossessed and it had to go through the bank. So we had massive delays. So it was 2020 when I went sale agreed, and I didn't get the keys. I think it was around August time. I didn't get the keys until February 21,
well,
January 21,
right.
I think it was. So it took all of that time. I had spent everything on that property. So I had spent my next 2 paychecks as well alongside. So I was so nervous going in. It was going from, building up that deposit for all them years and then nothing at all.
Being broke.
Exactly. So I started...
Broken with a mortgage.
Yeah, with a mortgage, yeah. So I was delighted with the delays as well. It really worked in my favour. So I built up more savings then, and really enjoyed the process. I thought, okay, what have I built on this and what have I went again? And again, we're talking cheaper properties. So I did buy outward. I didn't stay in Dublin for the second one.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And I spent a good bit of time, of course, building up that deposit. I availed of rent a room relief as well alongside.
Your existing house, yeah.
That's
Brilliant.
it.
That's a really good point for especially single people buying, to make sure that they use the rent room if they can, because that's up to 14,000 a year tax free, which can either overpay your mortgage massively or help you build up, or just pay your mortgage, or let you build up over a few years a deposit to either go again or do something with it. Really good point.
Yeah, it's fantastic if you can avail of it. Like, there's sacrifices with everything, every avenue.
100%.
But it's definitely worth it, and you get the right people in, and it's nice. It takes away that lonely spell of buying on your own, and you're now in a silent house. So I think I got the urge to do it again. I thought, okay, but I had very little knowledge in the property market. Like, nobody in my family has property knowledge either in that regard. So it was, looking back, a risk.
A leap of faith.
It was a leap of faith, and honestly, eyes closed, and just a really eager 26-year-old girl. So that's what it was.
Yeah.
Built up the deposit now. I did, that took time. Bought a cheaper property a little bit further out. And then I was set, and I was still building the career. And I was still moving around jobs as well, trying to find the right job at that time, because we're talking in 2021 now, and there's 2 properties now. I still got a little bit, I wasn't in the right company that I needed to be in at that time, and I was still not feeling quite fulfilled and comfortable where I was at. At that time, I was in an apartment, and I couldn't do anything with the apartment. I'd already done it up. I'd done the paint, and the floors were lovely. It was looking great. So I felt as though, okay, would I try buy again? And I think I just got very excited. I think anybody who's got into property, they would have these same feelings as well. And like, okay, we'll go again. By the look of God, though, there wasn't a third loan approved, and I'm so thankful looking back on that at that stage. And again, I didn't go to a broker. I went just direct to a lender and thought, I'll go here and see how it plays out. So with that, I decided I wanted to upsize then to a house, and I ended up selling my first place and I bought the house, and that's where I am now.
Brilliant. Excellent.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And sorry, the reason why I wanted listeners to hear that piece, because I think that journey for you over such a short period of time, like less than 5 years, or almost 5 years, really plays into your experience as a mortgage advisor, because you understand the kind of the client's perspective. Mm-hmm. And I know all of our mortgage team are brilliant, and I know everybody has experience of buying mortgages, but I think because you condensed it so much, and because you did it on your own as well, I genuinely believe that makes a difference when people are looking for advice. But I also think the fact that you just laying the principles down of, saving in the background, using the sacrifice. I mean, you have to sacrifice things in life for it to be successful in anything, whether it's your career, whether it's, a relationship, whether it's with your kids or whatever you're trying to do family-wise. So I think, making the sacrifice to say, right, I'm not just going to live in an apartment on my own. I'll rent the room out, get, the rent in, and be able to build up another bit of a pot to go again, or else even be able to trade up. I think mention the word sacrifice is such a good thing, because people do have to make sacrifices, and I love that about financial planning. Sometimes you have to knuckle down and have 6 months or a year, 18 months of sacrifices. But a financial plan is not having a life of sacrifices. It's not making sure that you're sacrificing for 20 or 30 years because you don't have a plan. So your plan was really short term: rent a second room out, get enough deposit, go again. And then a couple of years later, you bought your second house, or you're trade up into your second actual physical house you're living in, or property. So I think, look, it's amazing. I mean, what you've done in such a short period of time for such a young lady is just remarkable. As in, at 26, starting a journey and trying to figure it out yourself is brilliant. So let's bring everyone's attention back to the Instagram page, which is @single_third-time buyer, because you're using your Instagram page like I would have done when I started out with Ask Paul, is to kind of promote what you do. And I love seeing your stories. I think I was replied to one the other day when you had a couple up that they're moving into their house. And when you share those, I know how proud you are that you were part of that process. And when they send you the photograph and they do leave an amazing review for you on our Trustpilot, I know that they're delighted that you were part of the picture. Yeah. So I think it's such a good thing to be part of. I really do. I think it's an amazing career. I think it's amazing what you do. But what's the thinking behind the Instagram page? Is it to share the stories? Is it to advice? Just let listeners know what you do over there?
Yeah, I think as well, it's funny because when people do buy, I feel like I'm nearly living through them a little bit. They're coming to me and they're telling me all the little things that come up as well during the line. Because I'm not exactly in the market again to buy or anything. I'm just living through them, especially when it's friends and people come through personally. So it's great. So I am genuinely so excited. Yeah. The page initially was set up. I think initially I was in a branch that wasn't as busy, and I wanted to get better at what I was doing. I felt as though I was dipping my toes into mortgages, but also working in a branch. I was very much doing other things, cash desk and customer service, but I knew I wanted to really excel in that field and really quickly as well. We know I like to condense time. So I was thinking, if I can bring in a bit of business and get my name out there, this has to open up opportunities for me. That was initially it, but also to share my experience and my journey of what I was doing and document a little bit for myself. And also, as I mentioned, buying by yourself, it can be quite lonely. So you're sharing stories and people are engaging and interacting with you. You don't feel so alone. Like there's days down there, Paul, I moved in and there's no heating. We're in February, March time frame. It's freezing. There was a board covering the entire window in that duplex when I bought it, or apartment when I bought it. And it was lonely. You're going down there, you're painting all day. And I don't know about if you know how bad painting can be, but you go into 3 or 4 coats in this whole place. And you go down the next day, you're looking in and it looks like you've done nothing. So it was to share a little bit of that, and it definitely gave a bit of company. But then to keep the page going, I really wanted to excel in that field. And, I did dip my toes into mortgages, but I had nowhere near the experience I have now. Yeah. Getting into a broker. So I'm delighted it kept the page going, because interestingly enough, I saw a lot of people, they had just bought and they created a homepage, which was lovely, and they did the decorations. But I've seen a lot of those pages be deleted then because they didn't have much to fulfill it with after.
Yeah, well, you're dead right. I've seen those well where people are quite excited about the mortgage journey. Then they get the house, they move in, then it's a full stop because they can't. The content isn't there. Where at least through your career and through your advice, now you can actually get back into like maybe answering DMs or posting photographs of people moving into their properties as you're part of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
I genuinely do love. I think when I look at the Instagram page and I see the photographs, I know what it's like when people send in the photographs. Now, obviously, since the acquisition we went through a few years ago, I don't do much face-to-face client meetings anymore. I don't do much mortgage meetings anymore. But I would honestly say the mortgage meetings used to be the most fulfilling for me as an advisor over my 20 years in the field. It used to be the most fulfilling because you could see people really wanted the advice. They really listened to the advice. Where I think when it gets into pensions investments, because it's not a tangible thing at the end, like as in they're not coming over their house. And even when people retire, they have a big pot of money, but it's just, not saying it's just money, but with the property, it's a tangible thing.
Yeah.
And advice is so, it's obviously not tangible, but when there's a tangible product at the end of it, it's really cool. So that's where I warmed to the mortgage side of things. So it's great to see your page taken off in that way. Let's talk about mortgage advice. Let's give listeners a little bit of advice. So let's go from a single point of view. Can we bring listeners through what you think are the biggest things to look out for and do if you're a single buyer?
I think as a single buyer, we have to start, I suppose, with accepting where we're at that point. At this time, there are a lot of schemes out there that can assist. Engaging with a broker who has access to the open market and who can advise you on the schemes that you can actually avail of is hugely important to where you're really at in this process. I have recommended to listeners as well, Paul, your book. I read the whole book as well.
Oh, yeah.
Really good.
Sorry, Q, that's a promo for Money Made Easy.
Yeah, no, it's really good because I was quite good at saving because, as mentioned, grew up one-parent household, there's financial struggle there. You're given money and then you have to make it go and stretch a little bit further at a young age. Everything in your book that you mentioned, it was what I was naturally doing, but to put that in words to customers can be quite difficult because I'm not thinking of it. I think it came so naturally for me. So with your book, I found really good, and I do advise especially single buyers because to build that deposit, it is a lot harder. It takes a lot longer.
100%.
So it's starting there. So the savings, taking accountability where you're at regarding that. If you're just starting, you have to start somewhere, and all you have control over is what you're putting aside and what you can do. The schemes are something then definitely to look into, and can I get an exception, and how does that look as well?
Okay, so like an exception from a bank to see can you borrow more multiples of your income. I suppose the scheme then, the biggest one I think is probably the first home scheme, really, isn't it? Where the government become an equity player with you almost. So they're almost like a partner or somebody going into the property with you.
Exactly.
So that's probably the biggest one for single people, maybe, yeah. And obviously, if you can get the Help to Buy, if you can run the two, it was hard to get new properties. See, I think it's the most, especially in Dublin. I mean, no one can afford them. Like, as in, the scheme for the Help to Buy is up to €500,000. So I think people they're kind of out of it, really, aren't they? It's really not the first home scheme that could probably help them.
It can't, like, if they qualify for a good bit with a Help to Buy, it's great. If they're building up a bit of savings alongside, fantastic. Like, we know we need the 10% deposit. The first home scheme, I have a friend actually where I'm working through something quite similar. We have a reserve salary there. We know that we can only get them a certain amount, and I'm trying to work out what they can get at the moment and potentially use the first home scheme alongside. It is looking like if they do stay in Dublin, it could potentially be a 1-bed, 1-bathroom apartment.
Okay.
But at least it's giving you an idea of where you're at there.
Yeah.
So,
you're definitely so it's so, not saying common sense, but you're right, especially because from a single point of view, you have to just accept that piece. Where I know a lot of friends, even of mine, that will be single. I'm not saying they're waiting for someone to come along before they go on the journey, but if it doesn't happen or house prices keep increasing, it's trying to say, right, this is where I am today, and if we can put a plan in place that in 2 or 3 years' time I can buy, and then if they do meet somebody or whatever, it might amplify the time frame. But it's just the acceptance piece of saying, right, this is where I am, this is what I want to do, and executing it, really.
That's it.
And it's probably just a time that will take longer because it's only one income filling the deposit. But rather than just giving up and saying, I'm not going to do anything, because if you don't end up being able to buy with somebody else, you're kind of in that same place in 5 years' time and 10 years' time, and then you're just going to give up, I suppose.
Exactly. And then there's also questions as well, and this is a hard one. I have had the conversation with clients, but it's a real tricky one, but upskilling in your profession, is there a potential or possibility to do that? Some people can love their job, and it's a really hard one where if they do, the salary could be set and capped. But to open your mind and see, is there another route I can go? Is there job hopping I can do? Is there anything that I can look at like that? And that one's a little bit trickier, a little bit maybe more outside of your control. But a huge point as well, I think is important here, is the mindset piece. So also because telling yourself, I can't afford anything, I'll never get anywhere, I'll never be able to buy, I'm on my own, it's not going to help. And I said it actually on my Instagram page one time. I was saying, change the way that you're presented it to yourself. So even if it was a case, and I'm not telling people to go down to Donegal and buy a property where you're miles away from everything and everyone that's important to you, but to have that where you're looking on Daft and you're saying, okay, well, I could afford that if I needed to buy tomorrow. It's too far away, I'm not going to buy it, but I could afford it, and I could actually get in with the deposit I have saved and the salary I'm on now. I do think it's a little bit of a mindset shift.
That's a really good tip.
Yeah,
I've never heard that before. Yeah, it really is. That's a really good thing for people to do, actually. Yeah. So to be able to say they're not completely priced out, they're priced out where they might want to live, but they have got the option to do something if it came to it. Yeah. Because it puts the power back in their control rather than feeling that, government failings or housing issues and all the other things that are created the housing issue today, that's kind of overpowering them. I really like that one. That's really good.
Yeah, I think it takes the power back a little bit, and then also it puts you in a mindset of, okay, what am I willing to negotiate with my property non-negotiables? And for me, I had to do that as well. So I wanted, as I said, the 3-bedroom, semi-detached, all of that. And I actually was between moving about 40 minutes from family and friends or going for the apartment. And I personally chose to stay local and go for the apartment instead of the house that was 40 minutes away. And that for me, there's no right decision, for everyone, but that for me definitely was the right choice. I was really happy to be beside family and friends and where I actually grew up. So it is a decision, and it puts the ball back in your court, and you can make the decision saying it doesn't make sense for me to move an hour away at this time, but at least I have the capacity there.
You think about that mindset thing and looking at just say where you could buy, or even the decision whether it's an hour away or 40 minutes away or 30 minutes. Once you get into it, so let's say you're a single person, or I say even in a relationship, whichever circumstance are today, and you're thinking about buying and you're feeling the negativity of it. Even if it's just a project for the next 2 years, so while you're saving deposits, looking at those properties, and then at the end of every month or two saying, right, here's 2 properties, we could buy them, we couldn't buy them, this is what we need to do to get there. It keeps the whole thing interesting rather than just saying, we're saving, not spending any money and kind of living a miserable existence for 18 months. At least it keeps you, and I think no matter how many times you go see properties or talk to X amount of agents, or another bank product comes on the marketplace and you check in maybe with someone like Lisa and they say, no, this is new fixed rate or interest rates are down. They keep it interesting, and it keeps you that you're in the pot, you're in the mix. Where if you don't get in the mix and you're just saving for a long period of time, it can just be a daunting, horrible process.
Absolutely.
So at least you're upskilling yourself during it. Like, one auctioneer might say something compared to another auctioneer, an estate agent, or, and at least you can see your figures and you're playing with the mortgage tools and the calculators. And it's just a conversation that you're on the journey to getting somewhere rather than not, I suppose. Yeah.
Exactly. And a good point actually you mentioned there prior was, we don't want a case of not living life and just saving. It is very daunting.
Yeah.
It's not rewarding if you're thinking I'm going to save and do nothing for, 2 years or whatever it is. And when I do look back on my journey, from the purchase price, and again, we did have COVID, so that kept me very quiet during that period. But when I look back on that, I hadn't gone away on a sunny holiday. I did do 4 days, I think, in Alicante in 22, and besides that there was no holidays. So there was an accidental shift of, I'm not really living. I was very distracted and excited by the property purchases and the career. And now I'm at a point where this year in particular I was saying, I can't keep doing that, I can't keep it up. You don't really realise what you're taking away from all other aspects, like the social aspects of life and those other fulfilling things as well. So the balance that you're referencing is really, really important. There can be a period of sacrifice, and I don't regret it, but I definitely look back and I'm thinking, whoa, that was a little stressful. I don't think I quite picked up on the stress I was feeling as well.
I always say to clients though, I think once you move into the property, you forget about the stresses. And even like people are doing self-builds or new builds or home renovations, they are all absolute torturous things to do in your lifetime. From a first-time buyer point of view, as a single person, that's really good advice. I mean, everything from a mindset point of view and a planning and everything else. What's your thoughts on today's mortgage market? So let's just talk about people in general, whether you're single again or in a couple, whatever your situation is. What's your kind of advice you're talking to clients? Like, I'm sure people are saying to you, think the market will crash, think it will fall, watching about interest rates, etc. So yeah, what would you be telling clients today when they come onto a consultation with you?
I think we need to step way away from time in the market.
Yeah.
It's not something that any of us can do, and demand is still high and supply is still low. So I had a fantastic conversation actually with a couple. One wanted to time the market and hold off. The other wanted to stop renting. And I did work out for them. I said, do you know how much you've spent in rent over the past 4 years? So the renting coming into it where you're not living at home, you haven't got those comforts or anything. I wouldn't be saying hold off. I think it's a case of going for it, especially when it's a primary residence. If you're telling me you're looking for 10 investment properties, I might say, okay, let's time that a little bit. But other than that, no, you need to focus on exactly that though. Focus on what your controllables are. That's getting your savings in order, seeing what schemes you can avail of if you need them, getting the approval in place. And then if you have your approval in place, let it expire if you don't see anything. There's no rush from that point, but to be ready for when something comes up, that's really, really crucial.
Actually, no, you made a good point there as well. To kind of call out the listeners is try and get your approval in place before you go on daft or viewing houses, because it's literally you're only tormenting yourself. There's no, I think everybody does it, but there's the quicker you can get your approval and the quicker you can, your figures, it makes sense, because otherwise you're gonna, like, it's human instinct to fall in love with a place. And I think it's worse for couples because if two people are going in the same direction, where I think single buyers usually check in with family and friends and kind of get a lot more opinions because they're naturally more nervous about things, where couples will back each other and kind of talk themselves into a decision about their heart rather than their brain or their bank account. And then it's just a ball of stress for you as the mortgage advisor, but them as the couple or a single person. And then it's just a fraud process. It's a disaster from day one. We've put a deposit in a house, can we get a mortgage? Is the worst way to start a consultation, I think. Because you're going, even we get the mortgage, it's just going to be ridiculously more stressful than it needed to be. You should have just come to us 6 months ago, and this would be a hell of a lot easier for everybody, but more importantly, the client.
And I had that conversation, if I couldn't even count how many times they do come to me first and they're not sale agreed, and I'll say, look, it's really strong, we're looking at these figures, I would be suggesting you go ahead. They have a different time and they're saying, oh, we'll wait 4 months, but then I get a message or a phone call, we need to go now, we saw this property. And it's unfortunate, but you just roll with it. There's nothing you can do at that point, and I go along with it. I'm like, that's fine, look, I'll do everything I can and we'll get this moving. So they know I'm on their side, but I also am thinking, I did say now, before you went back on daft, come to me first. But they do, they get very excited and it's all go, go, go.
I think it's hard as well for people, to be fair to them, just as you were talking about that in particular, I think it's hard for people to invest the time and energy into the mortgage process because they think it's a head wreck. If they don't have a property. Once you have a property, they have the urgency to do it. But for everybody, listen, what is on radio today, or what you're listening to is back on the podcast, please, 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 if you're thinking about buying a property in the next 12, 18, 24 months, just get your mortgage consultation over to askpaul.ie, check in, get a consultation ASAP. They're free. Get all the advice, get the application, get your approval, and then go house hunting. If some banks are up to a year now with approval anyway, and then you can extend them in a year. So it's not about us forcing you to get a mortgage to draw down a house in the next 6 months. It's about you knowing your figures and being in the process, and not making it as stressful on yourself. It's probably the best advice I can give anybody that's thinking about doing this, because otherwise, they're going to leave it too late. And it's not about not getting the mortgage in time. We're quite good at that. You're excellent at that. But it's more about, just not having stress for you, the listener, the client. You don't want that. You don't want that stress, because there's just too much to do in such a short period of time that's going to melt your head.
And I think the reality is as well, and speaking to estate agents, the properties are going sale agreed within a couple of weeks. So I think one time frame they gave is like 2-3 weeks. So if you're going to see a property up, well, you don't know what viewing point they're on, and you're probably too late for that property anyway, which is unfortunate, because your figures from our conversation might have been really strong. So I think what puts clients off as well is they're thinking the 6 month of the year, how long it lasts, and they're like, oh well, we mightn't find it, or we need a bit more savings. They want the idealistic, and I did that as well. I'll save up a bit more and I'll hold off a little bit, but just
you're saying even if you don't have, like, say you only qualify for 350 and you need 4, get your 350 now, and if you had a pay rise right the next year, then go back in and up your that's a really good idea actually as well. If it's
ready to go with figures, and you think you might be able to work off that, get it in place. Worst case scenario, it expires. That's more, well, it's daunting for the client as well, getting all the documents again, but everything in the background is good. So your accounts are good, how you're saving is good, they've done your credit checks as well, the bank has, and they're happy on that basis. So you can go in quite strong, even if your approval lapse, let's say a week or two, and you're looking at property, we're probably going to be fine going for a loan offer, because you're doing the same thing.
Doing the same.
Yeah, you haven't taken out 4 loans or anything in the meantime, so you should be good.
And actually, just on that for listeners, when you're in that process of that year, that loan offer, or that 6 months, it is important that you don't do anything silly with your finances, and you kind of stick to the plan what you gave the mortgage advisor at the beginning. Because if you go and then decide to buy a car, and you have car finance, for argument's sake, that's going to go against your approval in principle by the time you go to drawdown. So it is important to keep life as simple and samey as you can, financially wise, while you have that approval in place. And if you get I've seen this before, a very good client went, this is 8 years ago, but we had a mortgage approval in place for them, and they couldn't get a property, and it was kind of going on and on. And it was, just let's book a holiday. But they used their savings to book the holiday and didn't save during that month. So they broken their kind of 6 months. So by the time you went to reapply, they ended their 6 month savings, because you had a gap. And it was logical what they did in their brain, but they should have just checked them. You would have told not to do it, or there was loads of ways to get around it, but just make sure if you're trying to change anything or spend anything material-wise during that approval process, that you do check back in with your advisor to see, is this okay? It's not that we're giving you permission to, it's just getting you the best way to do it, so it doesn't negatively impact your drawdown or your loan application if you have to extend it.
Yeah.
So that's another one to watch out for. Okay, so we're saying don't time the market, get in and buy. If you need to buy, you need to buy. And you're trying to time the market and you get it wrong, I've said as the clients like you did, the amount of rent you're paying, but also the mortgage market does increase or the property market prices do increase when we're 5 or 10% over 2 years, 5% a year. On a 500,000 house, that's 50k, and you add on $2,000 a month rent. Now it's a 75 grand decision.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's massive. So it is about not timing the market. If you are ready and you think you can get a property, it's about going for it. So, okay, that's the property market and what we kind of both, for what it's worth, I think it's going to increase anyway. I can't see it going back with the supply and demand issues the way they are anyway. So I'd be encouraging people to get on the ladder. Anything else there from a mortgage point of view? Rates, products out there? I mean, we brought out so many different products than we had 12, 24 months ago. There's more lenders in the market now. Anything with voice clients on there or listeners on there?
I think the rate is something I say to clients as well, like get your approval in principle in place. The rate isn't something just to worry about until you find the property, because that's when we go and look again. And the rate is something the clients don't have to worry about so much, because that's our job.
Yeah.
So when they come back in, that's when I'll be able to list out. And if there was a massive difference between the lender we might have got your approval with and another lender, we can revise that again and give you those options.
Yeah,
so,
go again for another approval next lender.
Yeah. So I like to take that off the clients and not to have massive rate conversations at approval stage.
Yeah.
Because I think there's too much for clients to think about anyway.
Yeah.
And a lot of stress they have to take on. So leave that with your broker. And that's the good thing. I say, you're going to a broker, they have access to the market. It's not you've picked one bank and you're hoping for the best there. We're going to be looking at products for you throughout. So taking that stress off them is our job. It's what we do. And
yeah. I remember speaking to a guy actually in our industry a while ago. I was like, these new lenders are wrecking my head because I'm going to have so many more like reapplications or reworks. So I was like, I love a new lender, because there's another value add to our client to go back and say, there's a new lender in the market. Let's look at this lender and let's look at this rate. So I think it's great. I think competition in the market is brilliant for people. I think it's great for the end consumer, because it should keep things, it should keep things competitive and hopefully more options. And if it's maybe not more options for today and there's new lenders and you don't want to do the rework of application, you could just take a variable rate or a fixed rate for a short period of time and then go back and assess the market in a year or two and switch your mortgage or 3. So there's always the option. You don't have to make a long-term rate decision.
And that's the thing with mortgages as well. When somebody's, they're thinking between maybe a cashback rate or else locking in for longer. The only way to really save throughout your term is switching, and I've done switches as well, and I think they're fantastic. And the cashback offering, especially for a switcher, is really strong. It covers the solicitor fees when you have to switch. So if you're looking to save and really keep on top of that, it is switching, and there's no two ways about it. You need to be switching. You need to be okay with. I know it's a bit of effort to get your documents back in for a switch mortgage, but worth it.
It's so much money for grabs. Yeah, so much money for grabs. I mean, guys, if you're someone that has a mortgage and you're at the end of your fixed rate, you're on a variable rate, or even you're on a tracker rate and it's a high tracker rate, you should really be booking in for a consultation, having a chat about this more. See, can you save money? Can you release equity? We need to do something. Can you, get the cashback offers from the banks, the pay your solicitor's fees, maybe put extra money in your bank account this month or this year. So there's so many things to consider here. So it's not just about all new mortgages. You're right to bring that up. Lisa is dead right. So it is about, if you have an existing mortgage, making sure you're shopping and competitive, because if you can reduce your rate and keep your repayment the same, there's a good chance you will save years on your repay, like as in knock years off your mortgage. So if you're sitting at a 24, 25 year term, you could easily bring it down by a couple of years where you actually finish your mortgage earlier, which can in turn probably allow people to retire. So they're all these so important decisions because they just make a massive impact. And I don't buy, sorry, I know it's what people say, but don't believe what you're telling yourself that to get the bank statements and the pay slips and is a pain. It's not if you're going to be retiring 2 years earlier or 5 years earlier or whatever the figure is. Yeah. So it is really important to engage and look at those type of things. Lisa, just for time, was any major tips before we finish up? So have you got any major tips, whether you're a single buyer or a first time buyer, for single buyer in a relationship, or whether you're a second time buyer trading up? What's the biggest tips you can give people?
I think the biggest thing I would say, and I know we touched on it pretty much already, but it is engaging with an advisor, building up that trust with the advisor as well, and knowing that they have the skill set there and the capacity to assist with you. That makes the journey a lot less stressful for you. But it is exploring every single option that's on the market. And since I'm in finance, there hasn't been so many options for first-time buyers in particular. There's so many options there just with the schemes that they offer. And then with second-time buyers, there's equity built usually on their property. So it's getting in early, it's getting in now, it's having great conversations, and knowing what you can do is step one. And if you go for the conversation and you find out that you're a little bit further away, you have to start somewhere. Yeah. It starts with your book, Paul. Yeah. Get that savings up, and you have to start somewhere. So getting in and having the conversation first, and keeping that relationship could start now. Like I've spoke to people in 2023 when I started here, they're coming back now. So that conversation is built. You have my email, you have my work line, and that's the key point, the crucial point.
And we have your Instagram page, which again is @single_third time buyer. Lisa, fantastic interview. Thanks a million for taking the time out of the day to come in and do the interview. I would encourage everyone to head over to the Instagram page, drop you a follow. And if you are someone that has a mortgage or thinking about that first time buyer journey, or a trading up, everything you're doing, get over to askpaul.ie. Do book in for a consultation sooner or later to get your mortgage on the way. Lisa, thanks a million for coming.
Thank you so much.